Welcome. I'm really happy to be with you today. We've been doing a lot of these webinars lately, but each one is a little bit different. We get slightly different questions, but every time it's really satisfying to teach, especially something that works so well and so consistently. Right, Claudia? Isn't this fun?
It's every time is excitement. It's so bad we cannot see the participants, but we know you're there.
Yes, and we've spoken to so many families over the years and so many educators and professionals. And so we both know that your kids are struggling and you are struggling to help them feel happy. You know, the happy, peaceful, life is going to be okay kind of happy. And we know you're here because you're looking for a simple, natural way to help your kids know that they are safe with you, that they can relax, forget a little bit about their struggles. I'm going to share my screen now so we can start. Claudia, tell me when you see a classroom.
I see it.
Perfect. Okay, I'm just gonna click play. The protocol we want to teach you works particularly well in a formal group setting like a classroom or a therapy room, but it can be done in a home too, and it takes almost no time to set up. And as soon as your kids experience it, they get this happy and peaceful rush inside. We call it the Mendability Minute. Our marketing people said we really needed to put our brand on it because it's such a powerful protocol. We used to call it the sensory start because it kind of says what it is, that it sets the tone and that it helps the kid get a good start for whatever you want to do with them for the next hour or so. And because when they feel calmer and happier, then they are more social, they're more engaged, and they're more interested in whatever you have in store for them. I can see that there are a lot of parents and health professionals in attendance today, and not quite as many teachers. So maybe this bit is a little too school specific, but we'll see how this goes. So in the next 25 minutes or so, we're going to show you how to do it. In fact, the picture we're using throughout this presentation has a lot of clues about what we're going to teach you. This is fun. We're actually going to try to give you the Mendability Minute experience. It doesn't always work super well on here with the technology, but hopefully it'll give you an idea. And for that, it would be great if you had a nice scent to smell while we do the Mendability Minute, because it's going to be part of the experience, and we'll explain why. So if you have a candle or a hand lotion or a chapstick or a mug of a hot drink handy, anything that you really like is going to be useful. We're going to then explain how it works with the brain, because when you understand better what's happening inside them, you can maybe start to be creative and maybe tweak it to make it even better for your kids or your clients. Then we'll go into Q&A, and this is very often the best part of the presentation. And if we have time, like I said, the stuff is easy, but we'll show you a few more things you can do in classrooms in particular to optimize the environment to help the brain. Again, we'll see if we have time for that. But for those of you who don't know her, our expert presenter today is Claudie Pomares, and she's the visionary behind sensory enrichment. Sensory enrichment is a powerful method of boosting brain development. And we use that to help brains of children and adults compensate for a wide variety of neurological conditions. Sensory enrichment therapy induces an elevated state of neuroplasticity, and we can direct a little bit where we want that surge of activity and growth to happen, depending on the brain function that needs attention. So Claudie's path was shaped in childhood when she saw firsthand what happens when people don't know how to help with neurological conditions. As a little girl, she was best friends with a boy with Down syndrome, and they would do everything together. And then one day he did not come to school. They had taken him to an institution because that's how they dealt with neurological conditions at the time. And with this early child childhood experience and also experiences with members of your family, right, Claudia? She made it her calling to look for strategies to support neurological development and behavioral health. And when she went to college, there was this brand new field of neuroscience called environmental enrichment that looked at how the brain could change even into adulthood and what kind of experiences could have an impact on brain development and brain function. Today, there's over 70,000 papers showing how the brain can fix itself in the right circumstances. And so Claudia saw all that research and essentially translated the protocols that they use with animals into fun, hands-on, short games that families could do from home. At first, she developed it as a program for all children and wrote a series of books. And that was back in France, where Claudie's from. And she also developed developmental toys, won the European prize every time she entered. Soon, big sponsors helped her evaluate the effectiveness of the sensory enrichment method. And they started with daycare centers across France. And these centers, actually, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the research, the results. We're talking about toddlers as young as 3 who were engaging with art and showing empathy. How young was the youngest one who was starting to show empathy? I'm feeling like 3 years old is almost too old, Claudie.
Yeah, the youngest one that we filmed was 10 months old, which is by the books impossible. Children cannot really show empathy and care for other children until they have full identity developed. But this is what happened.
Yeah, and so with the success of what you were doing in daycares, then you were invited by the National Committee for Research and Science to start developing a therapeutic version of this method. And the very first study was conducted at a children's hospital in Paris with a population of children with a severe genetic disorder that affects the development of nerves around the throat and the lungs, as well as the development of the palate and breathing and swallowing apparatus. It's called Pierre-Robin sequence. And Claudia's program of sensory enrichment helped these children develop differently. And so the children were able to go home. And so in early 2000s, Professor Michael Leon, he's the associate dean at the School of Biological Sciences at the University of California in Irvine, reached out to Claudia to see if Claudia could put together an autism-specific program that they could evaluate in randomized controlled trials with children with autism. And the study was very successful. In 2013, when the paper was published, Professor Leon and his team won the D.G. Markey Award for Best Neuroscience Paper of the Year. And it was published in Behavioral Neuroscience. And it was given by the American Psychological Association. And children who add sensory enrichment therapy to their therapies progress 6 times faster, essentially. And their IQ increase. And there've been more studies since with more children, more tests, always showing the same results consistently. And the one that excites me the most is that after 6 months, 20% of the kids progressed enough that they no longer qualified for their initial diagnosis. That's just in 6 months. Imagine what could have happened if the study had been done for 12 months or 24 months. And I want to share the results of another study because it helps me answer a question that we often get about age. I want to point out that chart in the top left that I've circled there. It shows the progress of children over the 6-month period of the trial, and each line represents a different age group. Most of them are the same, but you can see there's one that's slightly above the others, and that's the 16 to 18-year-olds. We did not expect that. We thought that, like everybody else, younger children develop faster, and so you have a program of brain development, and so they'll develop even faster. But our working theory, and it's just a theory, is that it could be because the older kids want it more, and so they try harder. So now we've done this program with over 4,000 families. We've also helped around 400 professionals in various settings like schools, private practices, addiction recovery centers, youth group homes, nursing homes. Sensory enrichment is a daily program. It's evidence-based. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes. It's short, it's fun, it's hands-on activities that can be administered with the help of a facilitator or a parent. The protocol we're going to show you today is part of our certification training for professionals and the training that parents can access when they do the therapy with us. And Claudia, I know this is your favorite slide, so I'll let you talk about it.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. I don't get tired of this image that you can see on the top right. These are pictures taken from the work of my mentor, Mark Rosenzweig, and shows what happens in real images to the neurons as you do sensory enrichment or environmental enrichment, as it's called when it's the animal model. So you see at the first slide is the original presentation of the nerve cells in the brain. They look pretty good. And a few weeks later of enrichment, you can see exactly the same neurons that have branches that are elongated, that seem so much healthier and stronger. And obviously, the best picture is the last one on the right that shows you basically the brain cells of your child or your loved one after doing 6 months of a therapy. Obviously,
Mhm.
we did not take those pictures for with the children or adults we work with, but because I had the blessing to work with children who are born with something called desencephaly, where they do not have enough brain cells, those children had pictures of their brain before and after. And the neurologists were a little bit surprised by the
Mhm.
growth and the number of new cells.
All right. So now that you understand where this is coming from, we can now show you the Mendability Minute. It's 1 minute to welcome children, students, clients into your environment. You can do it in the morning, you can do it in after lunch, you can do it before a session. Whenever you feel like it would be a good time to welcome and remember, make them feel that they're safe, give them this rush of calm and happiness. There's a video that I want to share later where a teacher who was doing it in her classroom, she had a little girl describe how it felt, and it's really touching. So it's time to take that favorite scent that I was telling you earlier. Here are the steps for the Mentability Minute. There's dim the lights. We'll talk about visual processing and sensory overload and how you can make a big difference by decreasing the overload there. Um, then you'll want to have an art slideshow on a slide on your smart board if you're at school, on a screen if you're at home, TV, an iPad. You have some relaxing classical music playing. When you give them a couple of scented pads to smell, you don't ask them, hey, smell this. You say, hey, which one of those would you like to smell? Which one of those do you prefer? Okay, there's some psychology there. I'm going to share a slightly different presentation so that you can, I'm going to play an art slideshow. So I need to escape that and now share file and share now. And Claudie, could you hear the music?
Yes, it was
I want to make
beautiful.
sure that it worked. Okay, Claudie, this is a part where you explain the science.
The slide I see is the brain, uh, and it shows really how we work and what we work on when we're doing mendability. We are not trying to work on what is visible of the child. And sometimes they show things that are just them telling us that they're not happy. So, as far as mendability is concerned, and with the Mendability Minute, we are talking to their brains. We are asking their brain to produce more serotonin, more dopamine. We'll talk about it. And that is going to improve the communication in the brain, and they will be able to feel the happiness that you were talking about. Yeah, I love that picture as well. It's if you remember, people, we looked at the real neurons. This is them drawn by hand by somebody really gifted, and Mark Rosenzweig again, and he's showing well, what do they look like and how they communicate. So, what do they look like? Again, it's a little bit. We can compare that to a tree, right, with branches. They move out towards other cells in order to communicate and send their message. You see growth of new pathways going, like when the color is a little bit different, it tells you that those cells have changed their appearance because of the stimulation. So, what we know about communication inside the brain is that there are two ways of communication. One is electricity, and the other one is biochemistry. So, that is the close up of where they talk. And what is very interesting about the brain cells, and is very unique about them, is that they do not touch. All the cells in our body are doing their job together because they are touching each other. But in the brain, they are coming very close. You can see a little gap. So electrical message goes along the long part of the cell. And when they get to the end, the electrical message opens up tiny containers of hormones, of molecule, neurotransmitter, whatever we want to call them. That is the biochemistry message part. And those little messengers sort of jump the gap, give the message to the next cell, then come back. So
I I love it in
yes,
presentations when you explain why it's really cool that cells don't touch, because they touch in every other part of the body, and
yeah.
they don't touch because it makes them, well, there's a lot of different reasons. One of them is it can modulate, which means a cell can stop a signal from propagating, and so a wrong signal could go everywhere very quickly if there wasn't that gap to modulate. But it also means that very quickly they can move around.
hmm Yeah, the mobility of brain cells is amazing. There is even a name for it. It's called migration. And the parents I work with or professionals are always fascinated by the concept that brain cells do move either to go and talk to other cells or to go and replace other cells. And that's very unique inside our brain. You cannot do that with your skin. Sometimes you feel like, I don't like those ones. I would like new ones. Can't do it, but we can do that with the brain, that not only grows branches and extends communication, but also has banks of stem cells, baby neurons, ready to come out and become effective communicators. So, what we know about the biochemistry of the brain is essentially around two of the neuromediators. And I say essentially because the neuroscientists have focused on dopamine and serotonin as they discovered that specific stimulation would increase both of them. So, dopamine, you love it. And I spoke this morning with a dad who said, I need to increase the attention span of my son. It's also good mood, memory, motivation, even the immune system gets better. So dopamine is the good one. You love it, and this is why sometimes you may drink a mug of coffee in the morning. How do we increase dopamine? Well, there is no medication. There are medication that will make it go faster, but it's your own. And every time you take a medication to mimic nature, there are terrible side effects. So some neuroscientists discovered that by smelling something that you really enjoy, you are getting 100% more dopamine to be released. And if you pair the smell, like we have done in a minute, the music or the beautiful images, then you can go all the way to 4 times the amount released. But what is marvelous about this process is that because you do it every day, the brain cells are going to start producing more. So you can have more and get more. So this is the part of the Mendability Minute that will do that for the children, for your child. Just handing out a wonderful little something that smells good, and that child suddenly has better attention span, is in a good mood, is motivated to learn. The second one that we really like because of the good thing it does for us is serotonin. A lot of you know about it, and what it does is right in front of you. You can read that really it's indispensable. We need to have more serotonin for ourselves, but for the children. It is one of the tools of learning and relaxation, being able to listen, but also being able to fall asleep. And you have here two of our pictures of our exercises and what you may want to do with the children as they arrive in the classroom, like a soft touch, a soft back rub with a finger or with a pencil, not with the writing end. So smell and touch associated, and those children have, well, 4 times more dopamine being released.
Yeah, I just went back one slide to show that this is often, if you want to do the Mendability Minute in the 1 minute, the art, the music, and the scent are going to have a very powerful effect. But if you could just top it up, if you could make it even more, you could set up some opportunities for them to experience gentle touch. And so they could do it to each other. If you've got a group of kids, you got siblings, or you can do it to them as they walk in, or you could have a texture station for them to go to. And we decided to make it optional because it would double. And so from 1 minute, you will go to 2 minutes. Claudia, you asked me to add this slide for the
Yeah,
touch. I really love the bottom one, but tell us about the two top pictures there.
yeah, they were right after you because you were the first person in the world to receive sensory enrichment.
Oh, we
But
should tell people that you're my
yeah,
mom.
hmm and proud to
This
be.
is it's a long story. It's not actually a long story. What am I saying? About 25 years ago, as your private practice was growing and you were getting government grants and getting more and more complex cases, you needed somebody you felt you couldn't run the show by yourself. And so you asked me if I could help because I was running a successful graphic design business at the time. And I said, sure, mom, I'll come and help you out, and then I'll go back to to do what I like to do, which is make beautiful things for people. And that was 25 years ago, and I haven't looked back.
Yeah, I did my best to keep you. Um, we would not be where we are today if you had not stayed.
Aw.
So the next children after you to receive sensory enrichment were the children of the daycare in France. The first kid is doing a tactile activity. He is 2 years old. And the one on the right is 8 months old. We were exposing them to different sensory information. At the time, we were using cards with a texture in the center. And in fact, I still have those cards that I had my publisher at the time create. And either the child was discovering one by one the texture in a book, or we were helping the baby. The graph or the lines that you see at the bottom are describing what is going on in the brain in very different circumstances. There is intense activity when you offer tactile activity to a child or an adult if you do it for yourself. The more irregular, more intense one is when we do not really know what is going on and we are discovering, we are interested, and the brain is sort of capturing tons of information. But the bottom one is the one that we really like. It's the description of pleasure. This is the brain just enjoying the tactile experience. And this is what will happen if you are able to either do a back scratch to the child or have them manipulate something that's not too new, but that's gentle and soft. So here you go. You have the very beginnings and also what scientists are now researching. They have found way more because, as Kim said, there are now 72,000 publications explaining the good that sensory enrichment does to the brain. And in that study, they sort of damaged the genes of the rodent model, the research animal, and they got them to be extremely anxious and extremely asocial. They could not be in the group. Then they exposed them to regular and repeated pleasurable tactile information. They describe in the paper the little brush that they were using that works very, very well with rodent. We know that the hand is very well used in
Mhm.
our protocols. And so what they discovered, and that was so exciting for us, is that not only they changed in their behavior, they became social little people, if I can say that about rats or mice or any animal model. They became calmer, happier, and one of the exciting part is they were able to demonstrate that not only serotonin increases during the experience and with repeated experience, but also dopamine. So simply with pleasurable touch, you are able to modify both serotonin and dopamine. So for parents and healthcare professionals, we have different ways of transferring that. And again, I describe this soft touch with the tips of the fingers, but you can also have, if you have difficulty, there are rules in the school and you cannot do it, expose the child to voluntary tactile information.
To talk about art and to talk about music, I'm actually going to play an extract from our certification course where we interviewed you and you talk about art and you talk about music and you just the stories you share and everything is just so perfect. Plus, it gives you a chance to peek into what the course looks like and the training and everything. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to share a file and let's talk about the art first or the music. Which one do you want to do first, Claudie? Art or music?
Let's do music first.
Oh, okay, okay.
In this video,
we are going to discuss why music plays such an important role in our protocols. Music has a very special connection to movement. Studies have shown that the brain will activate different functions, and particularly serotonin and dopamine. But I remember the first time I saw a video showing a Parkinson's disease patient in the end stage where he could not move at all from his chair, stand up and start dancing with a nurse as soon as the music started playing. This is when I knew that music would be in all our movement exercise. There is basically every month more research demonstrating the importance and the impact of music on the brain. But my favorite article, which I have shared with quite a few of my private clients, is an article demonstrating that listening to music raises serotonin and dopamine as much as orgasm.
Powerful words. I want to share the other interview we did, the part of the lesson where we talk about art.
The importance of art in the therapy follows the work of John Horvitz, one of the most important scientists who studied the effect of pleasurable visual information on the dopamine function. In his work, he's studied the impact of flashing the light in the face of cats. They enjoyed it, and it was possible to measure the dopamine flow in their brain. We are having a lot of exercises associating art to other activities or associating art and music. In general, the combination of other activities to art is to help the child or the adult to keep focusing on the picture. It's not really easy for a person on the spectrum or with developmental delay to focus and have interest in an art piece. So we are adding, for example, matching beads on the piece of art, matching the colors, or adding stickers. We also have puzzles that we create ourselves with an art piece that the child or the adult have to put together. Every time this activity happens, we know that the child or adult will be more focused, will have an ability to have pleasure in the activity and attend longer. We do not need education to enjoy art. Let me tell you about experiences we had and I observed in a 3-year study with typical children. Every day, between 3 months old and 3 years old, and for the duration of the study, the children were shown pieces of art, either in puzzles or simply looking at different details of the picture. One little girl, a 3-year-old, who is looking at the bedroom of Van Gogh, is looking quite concerned. She is quiet, she looks for a long time, and finally she turns to the caregiver and says, "It's dark, it's sad." When you look at that picture, which Van Gogh painted quite a number of times, the colors are really bright. There is a red comforter on the bed, the sky is turquoise through the window. All the colors are happy colors. But when we know the story of the painter, we know that he painted his bedroom, then went out and committed suicide. What we know from art, from artists, is that they do not paint objects or scenes. They are expressing their feelings. I do believe that children or adults who are exposed to art by simply looking at different pieces are able to develop this capacity to go and see beyond the image.
I'm going to go back to the presentation. Well, it's just the tips talk about different types, different ways of using art. But here we're using one of those tips, which is to do a slideshow on a big screen. So I'm going to start sharing my screen again. We can talk about the Mendability Minute. Okay. I don't know, Claudia, if you are seeing the
I
slides
am.
back.
Yeah,
And
I
so
am, thankfully.
I've got like a purple square and a blue
Uh-huh.
square for dopamine and serotonin. So you can see that
Yes.
when you do the art, the music, the scent, the texture, you're giving them a dopamine rush and a serotonin rush from in a few different ways. So if you're doing this as in a group setting, like in schools or in a group home or a nursing home, and you have people who maybe are not quite as interested in one format or one sensory experience, then you can know that because you're doing all of those steps, they're going to get a rush no matter what. And the last one is basically the sensory overload. Dimming the lights is a huge way. I don't know if you did it during the Mendability Minute. Did you notice that because the screen was a bit dark for a second, did you notice that there was a sense of calm that came over you? Have you ever tried that?
I
I want
have.
to play the video. This is the teacher who talks about this, that student of hers who was able to verbalize what it felt like for her.
Maybe you want to tell our participants that that teacher is from Australia, so pay
Yes.
attention. The accent is different, different from mine.
Okay, here.
Who has been diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder and also ADHD. So she's very highly strung, can get quite, she really struggles to focus and to sit. She's always up and bouncing around. And she, out of most of my year twos, in addition to the boy I was telling you about earlier, she has been able to verbalize to me, Mrs. Yanu, I can feel my body after I do this. Like, this is my favorite because I just feel so, she described it as sleepy. I just feel so sleepy and so calm, and I just feel so good. And for her to actually recognize how that Mendability Minute and the claw with the smell affects her body, and for her to verbalize that to me is really cool. It's and yeah, I can see just such value in it, especially for those children who have, you know, the anxiety there and the ADHD as well. It's been really effective.
I love that. Those people are so devoted. And one comment they made is that after using Mendability for a while, they were finally able to teach instead of dealing with drama and crisis. So they're wonderful, like all teachers.
I want to go into question time now. There's a couple of questions coming in. We have a question about Alzheimer's. We have a question about music. We have a question about motivation. I think it's going to be really cool. I want to toot my horn just for a little bit while I've got your undivided attention. I want to talk about what this program is. As I said earlier, we've done this program with over 4,000 families now, and 400 professionals in a variety of fields who are now certified to do sensory enrichment in our schools, group homes, private practices, etc. And we love training people who see children every day. There's just not enough of us, and there are more and more children who need help, especially since COVID-19. But there's something special about working one-on-one with families, coaching them, customizing the therapy to the needs of their kid, modifying the program on the fly as the child improves gradually. Here are some testimonials from our professionals in schools and in group homes. I want to read a few. The Mendability Minute has made a difference for emotionally dysregulated students. They look forward to it. And I've seen a transformation in their ability to focus and learn. That's for kids in grades 4 and 5. In a group home, we have somebody who said at the beginning of the year, there was a lot of tension through the day, but now we can sit with them, we can enjoy their company, we can build those relationships. their learning has flourished. It just goes on and on. There's a cool protocol that you would learn in our training, and it's on the meltdown de-escalation protocol. We've done a webinar on that as well, and I think you can go on YouTube to find it. The story is the same wherever they apply it. It's to switch from that elevated mood. They lost control of their emotions, and then when they do the meltdown de-escalation protocol, not only do they calm down, but they're more engaged because the smell has given them a dopamine rush, and now all of a sudden they're interested, they're curious, they're engaged, they want to do something. And so very often the story is they go back to wherever they were, schoolwork or whatever it is. And then we have some stories of kids staying for a long time, even when the others are moving on to other activities that maybe would be more interesting. They just want to finish. This is really cool to hear. And then this one last, there's a video where one of our moms, when she saw the power, she did a program and it worked really well for her. And what's unique about this mom is that she decided to drop everything she was doing and to become a sensory enrichment therapist. And she's now her own coach, and she tries to help other parents to do sensory enrichment with their kids. So I want to share what she says quickly.
Casburn, and I have two daughters, 12 and 6, and we have been doing Mendability for about 3 months. I was being punched in the face or bit, or large pieces of furniture were being moved, thrown, damaged, running away from the home, running in the street, not able to go into stores or restaurants, not being able to go as a family to family gatherings, or having to take 2 vehicles. She was having to be not removed, but being sent to her grandparents' house, thankfully down the road, for school and for respite. It was very painful for our family to be separated for days at a time, and for me not to protect my daughter and not know how to help her. Within weeks, it completely dissipated, where we were looking at each other going, I can't remember the last time we had to do a physical restraint or we had to put her in her room. I kept saying, I have a new kid. Who is this? And it was so reinforcing for me to be able to daily report, this is new. She's never said this before. She's never done this before. And that applied to either my youngest or my eldest. I can say, what would you like to have for lunch? And she will look at me with a smile and say, whatever you want me to have, Mama. And for a child who was diagnosed with oppositional defiant disorder, there is no gift under the tree or no birthday gift that can surpass hearing those words. I was skeptical that the wild promises or what I was hearing in my filtered mom ears sounded like wild promises. From the get-go, I wasn't quite sure how something that seemed easy to implement and perhaps insignificant at a first glance, how that could make such a significant impact. I was happy to hear that this is an evidence-based type of program. We surpassed my expectations of these goals within the first couple of weeks. We had more progress in 2 weeks than I thought we would have the entire program.
I want to go back to the presentation. I think you've got this. I think parents understand the scientific basis and the simplicity and the natural power that this does. So I just want to go into the Q&A. Oh, I didn't describe the plans. So if you're a family or if you're in a group situation, we can do, I think for the group situation, the best way to start is to do the behavior regulation training and to get the 3 months of coaching. By far, that's what people say in school districts and in group homes. What they love the best is the 3 months. It's not a thing that you purchase and just starts collecting dust on the shelf. you do the training, and then for 3 months we coach you, we support you so you can and we discuss, the different kids, the different situations, and how to adapt. And so it becomes part of your team's daily routines. And then when we leave after 3 months, you're running with this. And usually what happens after about 6 months, 9 months, and the benefits of doing the Mendability Minute, but also some of the other protocols that we teach during the 3 months, like the finger gym, the maze in the mirror, the art point and say, is that they say, okay, what's next? What else? And then we can go to the next level. It's more involved now. You have to start to do questionnaires, and we have to start data tracking. But for 12 months, you have us to coach you and train you. And we'll customize the program to the classroom. So we'll have each kid a questionnaire, and then we look at the lowest common denominator, and we look at the goals for the next 3 to 6 months for the classroom. And then Claudie will design a program, and you do the same exercises with all the kids, whether in a group home, again, nursing homes. And I say kids, when we say nursing homes, I guess they behave kind of like kids. And for families, we have a 6-month package. We call it our platinum package, and it starts with an assessment. And you have, again, it's customized just to the child. And Claudie designs it, and it changes every couple of weeks, and it adapts on the fly based, again, on the evolution, the progress. Every 2 weeks, you report a little bit of progress in a new area, a little bit. And occasionally you'll get like a big jump, and then a little bit. Anyway, so Claudie will coach you, will design a program for you. We'll do live video coaching call sessions to make sure you're doing the exercises she gave you just right. There's a guarantee. If after 6 months you didn't reach your goals, we give you all your money back. I mean, who does that? So the next step, if you're interested in any of this, is to schedule a discovery call. Send me an email, kim@mendability.com. Well, I'll send you the link to the application, and I'll discuss the next step, and we'll talk about pricing. So now let's go into questions. So Claudie, we don't need to share a screen anymore. Let's look at the questions we got in the Q&A. So in the slideshow, somebody during the slideshow asked, what song choice was that? Do you want to talk about what types of music would qualify in the different ranges, and how they can get a playlist of Claudia approved music if they want?
Yeah, that's the secret, really, is to ask him to send you a playlist. We have several that will match the moments of the day, or the taste. What research tell us is that orchestral quality music, beautiful music, will prompt the production of dopamine and serotonin. So it does it. It is not one style more than another. Some people would like what is called classical, and some would not enjoy that. It can be scores of movies, and even for young children or teenagers, now video games music, and I will name Skyrim because I really like the music, is played by symphonic orchestra. So you can really pick whatever the person enjoy, the participant will like or love. The only qualification is orchestral, no vocals, and really any style that fits the mood of the moment.
I like to dumb things down for myself, and the way I explain why it's important to have multiple instruments is because it takes a little bit of brain power. The kid has to concentrate to isolate, and the brain has to work on isolating the different instruments, and that engagement is what triggers the release of serotonin and dopamine. And it's the same for art. If you show a picture, the brain knows instantly what it is. There's no work involved. But processing art, that collection of dots and strokes, and sometimes it's a bit abstract, and you have to figure things out. And that's the figuring out that kind of triggers that dopamine and serotonin rush. Did I get that right?
Yeah, Absolutely. And I will add one little anecdote. You were talking about we showed the story of the little girl with Van Gogh. I have another little girl who was looking, a 3-year-old, barely 3, who was looking at a beautiful ballet dancer who was just about doing a bow. Is that how you say it when they are,
A
at the end
curtsy.
of the show? Okay. She was doing that. And the little girl is looking and she tells the caregiver, "Oh, she's dancing. Can you hear the music?" Isn't that amazing? This is what happens when you look at art.
The next question is from Gloria, and she asks, "Can the Mendability Minute work with a person with Alzheimer's?"
Absolutely. Because really it does not require explaining, asking, uh, instructions. You are there and your brain is going to absorb. And in fact, there are extraordinary experiences, and some of them you can find on YouTube, where you have a person who has lost the ability to talk or even to move, and who start singing and talking as they are playing a piece of music to him that he knew well, or a lady who also is able to recall, oh, and start talking to her husband when she's no longer verbal. So that's what I say also about dementia in general is a small accidents inside the brain that cause a catastrophe. But a lot of memories are still there. It's just they are not reachable. And music and art, the touch and the smells will do that, will reconnect things.
Yeah, I mean, we're not talking about a full-fledged treatment program to recover from Alzheimer's. We're talking about giving the gift of those people with Alzheimer's of feeling that calm and that rush of happy brain juice. Um, a question that came to us by email from Emily. My son cannot sit still, but his teachers say he does pay attention while moving around. I would like to create a home environment using your techniques. I'm not sure what the question is here.
Yes.
Any
uh,
comments you have?
well, in fact, she is right that children are learning, and this is also what I was telling one of my platinum fathers today. Children are learning when they move. They don't need to be sitting. We need them to sit down. They don't need to. But as far as environment, there is an impact of colors, maybe setting a little space where mendability will be happening. That is a very broad question with a long answer that maybe we can talk about later
So
or
how
in a
would you
different
do the
platform.
Mendability Minute? Because they, in our ideal scenario, the kids are sitting down and just, you've given them the things to smell, and they're kind of smelling and they're looking at the art and enjoying the music. They're already that it is the ideal scenario that happens when you've been doing the Mendability Minute for a week or two, right? So what happens on day one when you have that rush of kids and they're starting to calm down? They're calmer than they usually are, but you've got this one kid in this classroom, like described by Emily, where he's going to want to move around. So how do you do the Mendability Minute with hyperactive kids?
Well, minute is a secret, and a minute is really, really short. So if you have only, in fact, 30 seconds, the child is still benefiting. What we know, again, from research and functional MRI is that it takes 13 milliseconds for our brain to process an image. So you probably have 13 milliseconds of calm in the child. And what we have seen and heard from families or schools is that the children feel this wonderful sensation and they want more. And this is when they decide to just stay a little bit longer, either on the chair or in a corner of the room to enjoy it. So trust their brains. it is going to do the job.
I have a question here from Lola. Scents give me headaches. I cannot use scent diffusers in a classroom. How can I use smell?
Well, it is true that essential oils or scents that are put in diffusers contain often chemicals that can be unpleasant or cause a headache. That's totally true. But you can probably use something as light as the peel of an orange, like the natural scent, the way they were made for us to enjoy, and avoid any chemical product that is, even when you have organic essential oil, that doesn't really mean a lot. They can still contain things that you will not be able to tolerate. So go toothpaste aromas like spearmint. You can get very, very pure, natural from the source, like from the fruit or from the herb, wherever you live. If you're able to grow mint in your classroom, and mint grows terribly well, you just grab a leaf and give it to the children, and their hands smell wonderful. So thankfully, there are ways for you to enjoy and for your students to enjoy.
Yeah, and we also recommend using candy flavoring oils because they use a different carrier because they're not meant to diffuse and fill the room with smell. But because it's very concentrated, one drop will turn sugar into orange flavored candy or chocolate flavored candy. We have strawberry flavored candy. You can get a kit on Amazon for $10 or $15 with a few different smells, and they're very, very yummy. They're candy. Younger kids tend to prefer sweet, yummy candy type of smells. And if you've watched any of our other webinars, we love strawberry. We can go for a whole hour talking about that. So that's another suggestion. When after we're recording this, and I'm going to send a recording to everybody, but also send an email with a link where you can get those candy flavoring oils, the playlists where we've done some pre-made art slideshows, for kids who are obsessed with motorcycles or trains or horses. We've got some art slideshows for you for that. The last question, well, there's another question about smell, but I think we've answered it, is what smells would you recommend?
Again, it's like the music or the art. You want something that the person will love. Somebody mentioned Alzheimer's, and unfortunately, the first thing that goes before even people sometimes notice is the sense of smell. So by the time they are diagnosed, they have lost most of it. So I would recommend for people who do not have a very good sense of smell, think that they're more like have more molecules to them and are punchier, like eucalyptus or mint I mentioned before, but really go for what the child likes. And the suggestion that Kim had previously to offer a choice to children or to the participants, which one do you prefer? You will know very quickly what they like. So there is very little research about the impact of smells, like specific ones. There's been research on lavender, orange, lemon, strawberry, and vanilla. And the only research that was done was, do they help with calming a person, to promote relaxation? And they did. So we recommend those because there is research on them, but really you can go for anything that is enjoyable, like garlic bread, maybe for French people.
Mm-hmm. Okay, there's a few more questions there, but the time's up. I'll send, like I said, the resources, links. If you're interested in taking this to the next level and have you coach your family or your school, send me an email at kim@mendability.com, and we'll see you all soon. Thank you so much for joining us.
Bye.